Hello and welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL broadcast. My name is Dan Hansis. I'm joined in a studio filled with some heroes, Mark Sessler and Greg. Wait,
No.
You're not Greg.
No, that would be so weird.
Upgrade alert, it's Colleen Wolfe.
Hey!
Colleen. Connie Fox, we call her. How you doing?
This is amazing. Thank you for finally inviting me on the television version of the show. I've been doing the podcast,
Right.
I don't know, since like 2015. So I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, we were in a bind. Greg is out of town. We're like, what are we going to do? And,
Right.
And like, Colleen? I was like, all right.
It's like, who can we get to talk with us about men who are bigger, faster, and richer than us? Colleen fits the bill.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, and this is the type of banter you get all the time on the Around the NFL podcast, which you check out 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. We got, I think, 17 shows next week in Indianapolis at the Combine.
At the base
Hey now.
level.
So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. But today's show, we spin around the NFL in an hour. So let's get to it. Let us start, and let's put some time on the clock,
Okay.
just like we do during the regular season, and we'll have you totally caught up to date. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers, because if it's the offseason, there must be drama, and it must be about Aaron Rodgers, who we're waiting to hear. There was a report that Rodgers' decision on whether he's going to retire, return to the Packers, ask for a trade. We're going to get that soon. Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of Green Bay, has to answer questions about this. In the meantime, he was asked by the media this week, so what happens until Rodgers tells you what to do?
Obviously, everything around here kind of centers around the quarterback. That's kind of how we do things. So it's a big piece. It's a domino that kind of has to fall before we go down, other avenues. So it's important, as we go through this and the puzzle pieces that we got to make fit, I think. So that's the first one to go. So.
That makes sense, Mark. First one to go here. Do you think this ends in any other way than Rodgers back in Green Bay?
No, I think all signs point to that. Where a year ago, this was like James Clavell's Shogun. Remember that book that like moms would read? It's like 1,100 pages sitting on a table in like 1986.
I'll pretend I know what
Well,
you're
it's just
talking
going
about.
on and on forever. This drama, I think, is coming to a close because the team tangibly is moving and creating cap space. Aaron Rodgers basically said that he was thankful for the relationship that he and Goody had formed over the last year. He is good with the coach. The team seems good with him. I just don't sense that, him saying, I'm not going to hold the team hostage, that means a fortnight from now he's going to be a Denver Bronco. I don't buy it.
The thing that strikes me is the fact that Gutekunst said that he never promised that he wouldn't trade Aaron Rodgers. And this comes after Rodgers was on McAfee and saying that, Pat McAfee show, saying that, he had these meetings with the higher-ups, with Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst, and they were more positive than they were this time last year. So it seemed like things were going in the right direction, and I just feel like there's massive egos involved in this.
Yeah.
I don't
just a
know
few.
if it's Gutekunst maybe like throwing some gasoline on things a little bit to be like, okay, I'm the lead guy here on this, but for me personally, I would like to get off the ride now.
yes.
I want
am so
some
with you,
finality to
Connie.
this, please.
And by the way, by the time you get to the third reference, you call him Goody.
Goody, okay. Cool.
That's the way it is in the industry. What about this? How about this? And this just popped in my head now. On Independence Day, when the spaceships come over the different landmarks in the
ominous,
world,
slightly.
and then when the clock hits, it's a countdown. What if this is a slow play by Rodgers to make everyone, including the Packers, think he's coming back, and then he hits it, and that's it. And he says, I want out. You deal with it. Figure out your team. How about that?
I like it. I like it because he's an alien, sort of, in this analogy.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Well, there goes the buzzer.
And I want to say, can we bring up the Rodgers saga of this week started with a cryptic Instagram post? Can we just bring that up? Okay, there's a lot there. But at
Read
the
it
very
all,
end.
please, right now.
And
Bring it in, viewer.
It's about gratitude and love for his teammates and the woman in his life who might not be in his life, but who, again, I don't care. The last line that bothers me, and read a book once in a while, too, while you're at it. I don't need it, Mr. Jeopardy.
Well, we've been on
need it.
4 or 5 shows with Dan this week. He's brought this up in each vehicle.
Something about
You're
it.
annoyed by this.
There's something about
But
it.
he says right before that, you beautiful people. So he was calling you beautiful and then said you need to read a book.
That's kind of what I think he might do to the Packers. Oh, you're very beautiful. Now trade me. Let's move on to a beautiful quarterback. His name is Jimmy Garoppolo, handsome as hell.
Great jawline.
Great jawline.
Nice hair.
Let's just talk about how hot Jimmy G is for 2 minutes. No, Jimmy G could return to the Niners. This is a report from ESPN, Adam Schefter, that the end game for the Niners seemed like it was going to be Trey Lance, drafted 3rd overall, was going to be moved into the starting lineup in 2021. That never really happened. And now the assumption after Jimmy G didn't play well throughout the home stretch of the season, even though they went on a deep playoff run, was like, okay, we're going to trade him, move forward. Now we're hearing, Connie, that they might be open to keeping Jimmy G because Trey Lance isn't quite ready. Is that a red flag to you?
Guys, I think this might be our first off-season smokescreen.
Oh.
Interesting, okay.
This is great.
Okay.
I think that this is a leverage play. They do have a little bit of a dilemma here because the roster is loaded with talent, but at the quarterback position, Trey Lance in those 2 regular season starts, he looked very green, very raw. Like he needs,
as he should,
a lot of reps, and he can only get those reps though if they give him the opportunities. So they don't really. They gave up 3 first-round picks for him. Like at some point, you have to pull the trigger and see what you have, even if he is a guy that takes a little bit of time to develop.
In theory, this would be your Patrick Mahomes year 2 with Trey Lance. He sat behind what was, the version of Alex Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, and now you unleash him. I do wonder because Jimmy G's value is low right now. They know they want to. Teams know they want to move him. He came off, an ugly NFC Championship where he ended the thing. Maybe you wait till you get into that scenario where a team has lost their starting quarterback, and suddenly you're willing to give twice as much for Jimmy G at a different time in the offseason.
Is his value low though?
I think it's. The teams I would look at that would take him, maybe make a move. Steelers, maybe the Texans down the road, maybe the Broncos, maybe the Commanders or the Panthers.
Maybe the Browns.
Possibly, but is that an upgrade over Baker Mayfield? I'm just saying that he's sort of in that middle world.
Right.
So, you have to wait till a team is in crisis.
I'm with you on this one, Connie. Smokescreen sounds right. They need to pull the trigger. And Mark, you brought it up on the podcast this week, and it was a good point. The whole game
I should have brought it up here. That would have been helpful.
And, well, at least I gave you some pop here instead of just taking the point from you.
Good team effort. Like it.
What they can do now is you want to take advantage of a rookie on a first-round deal. You don't want to leave him on the bench for 2 straight years. That's an issue as well. That's a huge advantage. All right, in other quarterback news, Desean Watson. Yes, Desean Watson. What is going on with this guy? We know his legal issues. They are huge, and they continue to linger. The civil suits, there are 22 of them, I believe. There are potential criminal charges that could still come from the allegations that Watson is facing, Mark. And yet, a report from Pro Football Talk is that multiple teams would trade for Desean Watson, even if there is no settlement in the civil cases as the new league year turns over. That seems to me, on a number of levels, to be highly risky business.
I think it's risky. I think it's risky PR-wise. What are you telling your fans about what we know that Desean Watson has been accused of at this point, what he's going through? But I think unfortunately, it's the side of sports where it's like, okay, you know what? If you sign up for Desean Watson in the rest of his career, if he gets an 8-game suspension, the average GM is thinking, I'm here to win games. And if Desean Watson maybe doesn't have that suspension or things go in a different direction, you've acquired a franchise quarterback. The Texans they want to move him. They want him for a high price. There are definitely teams that want to play ball. We've heard the Bucs. I do wonder if a team like the Browns comes out of the woods to maybe investigate taking him as well. So I think there's interest because he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, whether you like the scenario or not.
So his lawyer, Rusty Hardin, said in court on Monday that the DA will likely have a decision on whether or not he will be criminally charged. But let's just play this out for a second and say that he's not criminally charged and he settles all 22 of the lawsuits. Well, then you have the possibility of the league suspending him for violating the personal conduct policy. So teams also have to take that into consideration. And if you're going to, I think the Texans are asking for 3 first-round picks. If you're going to give up that type of draft capital for someone that has so much uncertainty surrounding him, it just feels like a really risky move for a GM to make.
Oh yeah, it's a desperate move. It's not a good look, but it also makes your team a lot better. And yes, it's been reported the Texans are still looking for multiple assets, up to 5 to 7 assets, including 3 first-round picks. We'll see if they get that, but it's a situation that you have to continue to track, as unseemly as it is. All right, let's move on into our first break. We'll be back, don't worry. Tom Brady, he'll be back too, I guarantee it. He's playing football again. But for the time being, he's moving to other areas, other arenas.
Ooh.
Nailed it. Up next on the broadcast. Oh, yeah, welcome back to the broadcast. Dan Hansis, Colleen Wolfe, Mark Sessler. You know, Mark, we are having Connie on. She's a guest. She's in the house, but
Sure.
She's also part of the family. We have a really good relationship with Colleen over the years. And yet I ran into another friend of ours, a colleague, Mike Garoppolo, in the newsroom.
Great reporter.
And it's like, oh, what you doing here? It's like, oh, I'm in town. I went out to dinner last night. I was like, oh, really? With who? Oh!
Wait a minute.
And then, oh, where'd you go out to dinner? It must have been way down south near where Connie is. Oh, no, Manhattan Beach. Oh, really? Like the town literally next to where Mark and I live?
Like I could walk there in 8 minutes from my front door.
And guess what? Wait, it gets worse.
Okay.
Mike goes, is there anybody else we should text? And Connie says no.
What? That's not how it went. Is that how I told Garoppolo if he wants to add anybody to the reservation, now I'm telling on myself, that he can let me know. I should have invited you guys, absolutely, but now I'm the guest. So I would like a glass of water or like maybe some snacks.
I mean, this is the only reason that we actually brought you on the show was to deal with this situation and the tipped over water bottle.
All right. Yeah. Well, we'll work past this, but the next town over.
You know that if you had to pick between which one of us is more offended by this, I think you could easily.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get the invite next time.
Well, I feel like maybe I could have handled it better, but I also feel better about myself. All right, let's move on back into the news of the NFL as we try to put the relationships back together here in the Chris Wessling podcast studio. Let's start with Troy Aikman. Oh, Troy. Troy got paid. Whoa. He has a deal now, 5 years, $90 million and change range for ESPN. The analyst game, the broadcasting game has really jumped up the melodrama. Mark, this is something we've followed for years on this podcast. We are always fascinated about it. And now it becomes what's next because there's more jobs that need to be filled. Thursday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. Go, Mark.
This is much spicier than the crop of upcoming NFL free agents. This broadcasting flip-flop and people going left and right. Aikman and Buck are best friends. They've broken up that friendship. They want to lure Buck too. We'll see if that happens. But you've got Al Michaels hanging at the 1 yard line on maybe doing TNF. He wants to find out who he's going to get paired with. Sean Payton's in the mix. Tom Brady's name has been mentioned. Sean McVay. I mean, who's not
Greg
at this
Olsen,
point? You know, who's not in teed up for this?
There are so many people involved, and I'm just like, when I look at this Aikman deal, like he's going to go up against the Manning cast. Like, that's That's still going through 2024, right? So you have severe competition there. But when you look at the fact that Aikman and Tony Romo are now two of the highest paid NFL analysts in the booth, like I'm so happy for them because it's really two of the Cowboys' biggest wins in the longest time.
Wow, the Eagles fan comes off the top rope.
It's great.
In a big spot. And how about this? I know Aikman wasn't happy when Romo was getting all that shine the last couple of years, then got the huge deal, then got the playoff game, Dallas, San Francisco, while poor Troy had to be on the field. Well, the Eagles playoff game. How are the Eagles in the playoffs this year? That's another conversation.
They got to the playoffs, though.
But it turns out that Tony got Troy paid. Tony changed the game for all these guys, and now the money is just massive, and it's something for you to aspire to, Mark Sessler. Maybe you could be next to Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football.
I'm certainly next in line in the minds of the people that make those decisions.
Let's move on. Tom Brady, he's not retiring. He's not playing this year, but he's not retiring. Quote me on it. But that's not what I'm talking about here. Tom Brady's appearing in a movie about Tom Brady. It's a road trip comedy that he's producing and apparently has a cameo in. And it's about 4 octogenarians. Did I nail that?
Yes, I believe
ladies who travel to Atlanta for Super Bowl 51. That's the big comeback against the Falcons and all that. Is this a movie, Connie, that you will see in the theater?
Are you kidding me? Jane Fonda and Sally Field, they are in this movie. I am there. I'm watching it 1,000%. You can book it. As someone who is 80 years old at heart, I fully endorse this. In fact,
look at this.
I will wear these glasses when I go and see it. Because
give her one shot. Look at this.
Thank you. This is my camera here. Great, come on in. I think that this is fantastic. I love Jane Fonda. I love Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda together. Grace and Frankie was fantastic.
All right, I'm gonna put your feet to the fire. The youngest 80-year-old woman in the world. I'm gonna put up the 4 stars, the legends of TV and the silver screen, and you're gonna tell me who's who.
Okay. Jane Fonda is top right.
Nailed it.
Lily Tomlin is bottom left. Sally Field is bottom right. And then top left is...
Tough one.
Ooh.
Rita Moreno.
Yes.
But, you know, we'll
90
give you
years
credit.
old, was in Singing in the Rain, so she's been around for a bit.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I do. I wonder about Tom Brady's acting chops. Nice job, by the way. I wonder about Tom Brady's acting chops because I did see his SNL performance. Oh, my God. I look like Uncle Morty. I'm going to the horse track.
Those sort of suit you, to be honest.
You have to go to Vegas wearing those.
I'm going to bet the ponies.
In a particular environment, they work.
Tom Brady is not a good actor. He was bad on SNL. But he's got charisma.
We can grow in that craft.
It's just a cameo.
Right, I think he's going to be good.
All right, maybe bad actor. Live comedy is hard for anyone. Well, Connie, you've done improv before on the stage.
Yeah. So, it's tough. But if you're playing yourself, it can't be that difficult. Right?
True. Unless, Tom Brady, totally authentic in every way.
I think Mark should wear the glasses now as well.
Let's around the table with the glasses. Yeah.
All right. Up next, very good, Mark. You look handsome as a devil. The command. Check this out. Check out. I wrote this at the bottom. Can you bring this up? I like this. The first guy ever journo that's been able to use Commander's Retreat. It's going to happen a lot over the next 100 years, but I did it first. Commander's Retreat, historically inaccurate crest corrected. Now, Connie, this is Washington. Listen, they're just one of those teams. Sometimes it's hard for them to get things right. Their crest, when they announced the name of the new team and all that, had here's the original crest when they first launched it last month or early this month. And there it is, their 5 championship seasons. And yet, that was not right because let's see the other one. Those are the years of the Super Bowls. Okay, so they had to change it. They had to change the years of the last 3, and then they messed this one up too. Our Super Bowl victories, only the last 3 are Super Bowl victories. The first 2 are NFL championships. Oh my God, my head hurts.
They say it like we hear you loud and clear, like it was Twitter that was like, hey, we need you to do this. Like they should have known that. Like going forward, they're going to, like they were breaking some type of ground. That's how it's supposed to be.
I want to make it clear, because maybe I didn't and I failed as a host there. If Mark Rippon leads the Washington football team, I almost said it, to a Super Bowl in the 91 season, even though the Super Bowl was played in 92, you're the 1991 Super Bowl champion.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and we can acknowledge that that's an annoying part about covering football, that the championship happens like in tagged onto the early part of the next year. But Dan and I came into the company as low-paid editors, like night watchmen at Woolworths is how we were paid, and we were focused on copy. And the idea that this got through focus groups or layers of management and was tweeted out to the public is an offense to myself.
It's an understanding as a sports fan
Yeah.
that you understand it. Like, that is what's known. So for it to be the crest, maybe we should stop here.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's on merch, like how far it
How
had
far
gone.
did it get?
Well, that merch then gets sent overseas somewhere.
Airdropped.
Yeah, exactly. Airdropped over.
How about this,
a
Washington?
Bolivian
Take
forest.
command of your logo.
Hear that?
Oh!
Hear that?
Oh! All right, that's the end of that block.
We'll see you never again on television.
Let us move on. Coming up next on the broadcast, Kyler Murray. Man, we need one of these quarterbacks to shake free from their team and really spice up the offseason. I was hoping it could be Kyler, but maybe that won't be the case. We'll talk about his future in Arizona next on the broadcast. Welcome back to the broadcast. Yes, we have so much more to get into as we go around the league. All right, let's get into it. Let's go. Kyler Murray, a big story here, obviously. Murray scrubbed his social media account and was unhappy with certain elements of his situation in Arizona, it seems. Then the report came out citing sources inside the building that Kyler Murray maybe not the best teammate. So a lot of drama. He comes back with a statement and says, yeah, that's all false. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a baller. Jane Slater, our own Jane Slater, reported that Cardinals and Kyler Murray are on the same page now. And then Cardinals owner Michael Bidwill came out on Friday and said he loves Kyler Murray and knows he's going to get better. Connie, Kyler Murray, and I was at that playoff game against the Rams. He needs to get better. There's so much was thrown at the feet of Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm sure he deserves a lot of the blame. But Murray's got to be better and perhaps be more accountable and take the next step as a pro.
And that's what our own Mike Garoppolo had reported before Kyler scrubbed his Instagram. That he
Was this during our
dinner that we went to?
the dinner?
No, this was in what, like early February?
Probably discussed during the dinner.
Yeah.
So the reports were that the team wanted Kyler Murray to just progress with his maturity and his leadership, and then he scrubbed his Instagram. I feel like that's not like a step in the mature direction.
Not typically.
But with Jane Slater's report saying that everything is copacetic between the two, they're working on either exercising that fifth-year option or a long-term extension, perhaps. The window just opened at this point. So it seems like things are calming down, but when you look at the way that the Cardinals started the season, 7-0. They were 10-2 at one point. Kyler got some MVP pop as well. And the year before, they also had that hot start and then the collapse. So you just wonder, is it injuries? Is it what is it? Because they get off to such a great start always, and then it falls apart.
You had Carrie Fisher called her marriage to Paul Simon 2 flowers, no gardener. I hope that's not what's happening with Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. Who is in charge here? How does this work? It seems like the late season fade is a constant drama for them.
That's pretty good.
I like that.
Oasis songwriter Noel Gallagher once called his brother Liam a man with a fork in a world of soup. Maybe that's the situation.
That's problematic too. That doesn't work.
If it's chili, though, that could work.
Or chunky, if there's stuff in
chili soup.
The Kansas City Chiefs in the news. Eric Bieniemy will return as offensive coordinator in 2022. Bieniemy has had a bit of an interesting roller coaster ride here in recent years. He's been attached to one of the greatest offenses of a generation, and yet he has not been able to get a head coaching job. We know there's a lot of things that go into that scenario involving Bieniemy. And he almost didn't come back with the Chiefs, it seemed like, but now he is back in the fold. Another one-year contract, Mark.
Yeah, and they've also brought Matt Nagy back, vaguely disgraced Bears coach as a senior assistant.
Vaguely disgraced?
Well, I mean, he didn't come out of there with flying colors. It's like you come back.
That's a little strong.
Come back to the fold and bring the band back together. With Bieniemy, it's interesting to me also that Ryan Poles, of all people, Ryan Poles goes to the Bears. He was from Kansas City's front office. Wouldn't that have been a natural place to bring in Bieniemy and become head coach? There's something going on there with the interview process and stuff. There's no question that he's done a great job with Patrick Mahomes, with that offense. Does he call plays? There's some hazy reporting about whether he does or doesn't all the time. But Andy Reid keeps him around, so that's not keeping him around just for fun.
Yeah, they've been together since 2013, and they've seen a lot of success together. So this is good for the Chiefs to have that continuity, to have Reid and Mahomes and Bieniemy back together. But for Bieniemy, the frustration just has to be so real. I mean, he was considering going and coaching college ball or maybe even taking a year off, but now he's back with the Chiefs, and we'll see what happens from here. But he needs a head coaching job.
Remember when the Chiefs were up 21-3 and then 21-10, and they had first down at the goal line against Cincinnati at the end of the second quarter?
Yes, I do.
And somehow didn't score any points, and then scored 3 points the rest of the game and blew the AFC title game in just in a catastrophic way. Is anybody else still amazed that happened?
Yeah.
I have not. I'm still processing watching Patrick Mahomes melt down like lava down the side of a mountain.
It was a huge melt, and I can feel your pain, Dan.
It's not pain. I'm a Jets fan. It's a different type of pain.
Yeah.
But I'm not. Did that hurt Eric Bieniemy in this latest coach carousel? I don't know, but that's still crazy when I think about the Chiefs.
How much of that is on Reid?
Right. It's hard to decipher who to point the finger at in that situation.
All right. Let's also, this is the time of year we like to call it the trope alert season, like scrubbing your Instagram is a trope alert. Here's another one. When a GM or coach gets behind a quarterback who clearly isn't the future, Pittsburgh GM
Kevin Colbert.
Kevin Colbert, thank you, says, hey, man, we're cool. We like Mason Rudolph. I don't buy that. And then you had Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay hit me with another trope alert. Hit me, Brooksby.
Yeah.
Trope alert.
Blaine Gabbert.
Trope alert.
Do you give him the disgrace title? It still seems strong.
Well, no.
Former first-round pick. Has never been on a team this good. Usually, reading the tea leaves, when a coach or a GM pumps up an internal guy that's not seen as a player, that's going to lead to someone being brought in to replace that guy as the number one option.
It happens this time of year, every year.
Yep.
That's like one thing that you can absolutely guarantee. I did find it interesting that Gabbert when you look at what he's done the past few years, 8 head coaches, 8 coordinators in his first 8 years. Like, there was absolutely no continuity whatsoever. We know that's so important, but it doesn't help the 50 touchdowns to 47 interceptions.
No.
I mean, he's going to be 33 in October. Like, this is he going to be the successor to Tom Brady?
No, I think like what
No.
the Bucs are doing, because we
No.
know that they're interested in Desean Watson per reports, that Russell Wilson's on their radar. I think it's if we don't get what we really want. But Arians has been pumping up Gabbert since he was with him on the Cardinals, and he has these fetishes for mid-level quarterbacks. It goes back to like Kelly Holcomb in Cleveland way back in the early part of the century. I mean, he just thinks he can coach him up. I don't doubt that he could get the best out of Gabbert, but that is not your starter for the rest of the year. No.
Wait, Blaine Gabbert's going to be 33 later this year?
Been around for
Doesn't it
our
feel like
entire
he's, like,
career here.
73.
Doesn't that make us 143, Mark? I mean, I remember when he was drafted, we were
Closer to
lowly
that.
newsroom humps.
Closer to that. I
We
mean,
are
were
80
doing
years
Teletext.
old
What?
here.
Blaine
Problem.
Gabbert's 33. And by the way, I knew the GM of the Steelers is Kevin Colbert. That was a test. I like to throw Mark tests every once in a while. Sometimes on live television, and he nailed it.
Yeah, and half the time I'm failing, and then the executives upstairs are like, get the cane and yank this guy off stage as quick as possible. Like,
All right, let's move on. Coming up next, we have that podcast, right? The Around the NFL podcast. We're going to share a portion of an episode this week, a great conversation with Zach Kiefer of The Athletic on Carson Wentz and what the Colts are going to do. And you'll get to see a little Greg Rosenthal cameo, too. It was in his contract. I must be in the episode in some capacity.
Wentz, and he's going to throw upfield into the end zone. Touchdown! Jack Doyle, an RPO as they got Carson Wentz shuffling to the right, and he threw a dart to the tight end into the end zone. Touchdown! INDY.
He is a dad to 2 awesome little girls. He covers the Colts in the NFL for The Athletic. He's an analyst for Wish TV, an adjunct professor for Indiana University. And he also wrote a beautiful piece on Chris Wesson for The Athletic. Of course, we're talking about Zach Kiefer, who knows what's going on with the Colts. What's up, buddy?
What a dramatic intro. I don't know if I can live up to all that you just described.
Well, it's all there in the Twitter bio, Zach, and we thank you for joining us. And you are a professor, and you do look professorial right now, and I think we all applaud you for that as well. You have levels.
I try to play the role on Thursdays during the spring. I've had to stop class a couple times when news happens and say, hey, you guys give me 5 minutes. I got to text somebody to get this news out. But hey, it's a good lesson in how the business works, right?
Oh, it's been Rap Sheet's move for a while. He basically has given up on being polite or really human communication because he can just stop any conversation in the middle of it.
He's done that to me.
Yeah, that's
He's
pretty
done
much
that to me.
There's actually no one texting him. That's just what he does.
Zach, let's get into it because yes, we're all trying to figure out, like everyone else, what the Colts are going to do at the quarterback position. And you wrote a really good piece on The Athletic about this. You talked about it on your podcast. In fact, I have the exact wording from Zach, and if he leaves nothing, these journo types, they're very pointed in the words they choose. It's my firm expectation, based on recent conversations, that the Colts will move on from Carson Wentz. And Zach, that's 3 years and $82 million left on the deal he signed with the Eagles in 2019, but only 1 year of guaranteed money. I'll start here. There have been so many breadcrumbs about moving on from Wentz. But how do you actually do that? Do you think there's a trade market for Wentz? And if they do shake free of this commitment, where do they go from here?
Yeah, I probably should have couched that by saying never say never, but he's moving on. He's not coming back. That's like I wrote, my firm expectation. He will not be back for a second year. And to be clear, they're going to own $15 million, and that's not even the deciding factor here. That's something that they're just going to have to live with. They're going to move on from him. Trade market, I'm really fascinated to see, because there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, and when you stack up Wentz's numbers and production last year, which wasn't horrible, against a lot of these guys, it compares favorably well. And I think a lot of your audience probably looks at 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and says he was pretty good. And there were stretches last year when he was pretty good, but for those who watch the tape, you see the problems that arose. They had to become a run-first offense with Jonathan Taylor because they didn't trust the quarterback. He cost them late in a lot of games. They were 2-5 in one-score games. The quarterback had a lot to do with that. And I've even gotten to Las Vegas and Jacksonville when he absolutely just melted down. They cost away a 97% chance at the playoffs. Oof. It just ended disastrously. And I'm very, very convinced that they're moving on. It's just going to happen, whether they can find a trade partner or not. And if not, they'll just cut him before March 19th when that extra $13 million is due.
Wow. Well, I think, too, they could get a late-round pick for him or something that makes the money go a little bit easier. Is it just an emotional thing? It feels like it's Irsay. From the outside, because there's different sources, and there's an ESPN report. You've been writing about it really the last month and a half, and it feels kind of like the boss just wants him gone. And if it wasn't for Irsay, do you feel like Reich and Chris Ballard would maybe be as aggressive getting rid of him without even knowing kind of what's behind door number 2 and who they could get back?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's fair. I understand the emotion that comes after Jacksonville. I'm sure you guys talked about it. I mean, this was, in Irsay's words, I talked to him about 8 or 9 days after the season ended, and he said this was an epic shortfall that stunned and shocked and appalled us all. I mean, when do you hear an NFL owner say that? They were road favorites by 14, the biggest spread they've ever had in NFL history. And they're in their history.
The rest of the team stunk that day too, by the way. It's worth throwing.
Correct.
There.
Yeah. And I've written that they need more at receiver than Michael Pittman Jr. They don't have anything at tight end. It's not all on Carson. It's not. But after this season, this was very telling. A year ago, they said, we want Phillip Rivers back. He retired. This time around, both Chris Ballard and Frank Reich, and Chris can't help himself. He tells you what he thinks most of the time. He said, you got to make the layups, Carson, which is code for, dude, just take the checkdowns. And then secondly, neither of them committed to bringing him back and said, we're going to look at all our options. They're looking at their options, and they're not great right now.
That's my question. Like, with Chris Ballard, I mean, we just are coming out of a period last offseason where the Rams swung for the fences. They don't care about first-round picks. They'll mortgage the future for Matthew Stafford. The read on Chris Ballard, I mean, they don't have a first-round pick. Where do you go? Are you going to try to sell to Colts fans that Teddy Bridgewater is the right move at this point, or some sort? The free agent class is a mess. What do you see them doing? Are they a candidate to maybe try to get a Russell Wilson or someone like that, or is it just finding another mid-tier quarterback because the distaste with Carson Wentz is so intense?
Isn't that telling? They don't have a good plan B. There's no like obvious answer. They have some money, but they don't have a first-round pick because of the Wentz trade. There's no obvious answer, and they're still going to move on from Carson Wentz. That tells you how they feel about him, in my opinion. That's my takeaway. And Mark, I mean, what's the play? You can't sell Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, you could make the case that Carson Wentz is a better option. And I know there's flaws with both, but the reality is, and I wrote this team might need to accept the fact that they go backwards at quarterback in 2022. And it's a really interesting dilemma because you've got guys like Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard. I mean, they had 7 Pro Bowlers last year. That's the most in the league. And they didn't even make the playoffs. And it's funny because for all those years with Andrew Luck, it was they had a quarterback and not a whole lot around him. Now they have so many good pieces. Objectively, this is a pretty good roster. They've got some holes to fill, but this is a pretty good roster. But they don't have the one thing you need. And I wonder how Chris Ballard's mindset has possibly changed after the playoffs, right? Because they don't have a quarterback. You got to throw in this league. They don't have wide receiver weapons. And the Rams went out and spent all that money, and it paid off. And the Colts have been the opposite of that. I wonder if their approach changes, but they're not going anywhere until they figure this quarterback situation out. And this year will be Frank Reich's 5th season. It's his 5th different starting quarterback. That's absurd.
Wow.
I mean, that's crazy. Another stat is they're 9th in offense in that span with 4 different quarterbacks. 2 of them aren't good.
Right. And ultimately, yeah, it's the list is Tolzien, Luck, Brissett, Rivers, Wentz. And ultimately, they backed themselves in a corner, didn't they, Zach? Because when you give up 1st and 3rd picks to the Eagles, you inherit Wentz, you inherit his contract. And I wouldn't say, like you're pointing out, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You know, going into, say, week 16, they felt like one of the best teams in the league to me. And yet, there's a decision when the owner's firing off 2 a.m. Tweets about we need to be better and we have to score more points and all this stuff. The writing seemed to be on the wall. But, yeah, there doesn't seem to be a clear path. That's a problem. Then I looked at something you wrote when you look back on Chris Ballard, what he had to say last offseason. And he said, it is not an exact science regarding drafting quarterbacks. Everyone thinks you just take one and you're going to fix the problem. Look, taking one will get y'all off my ass for a little bit, the journalists, the media. But the second that guy doesn't play well, I'm going to be the first one not run out of the building. So if Wentz is going to be kicked out the door and you don't have a first-round pick and the free agent and trade market is not overly appetizing, yeah, I don't see how they don't take a step back. And maybe Ballard's starting to get nervous now because he's like, man, this is going to come back on me if we go 7-10 next year.
You know what tweets I'm getting? I mean, I'm getting tweets, people saying, well, let's just take Mike White. Let's just take a flyer on that guy. Or let's start Sam Ehlinger. And I love Sam Ehlinger. He's a great kid, but, like, that's not an NFL starter, in my opinion, based on what I saw at training camp. I mean, the shame of it is this team is ready to win. And I don't know what win necessarily means. I think they could compete certainly for the AFC South crown and maybe make a run in the playoffs if they had the right quarterback, but they've been in this hamster wheel for 5 years, and I don't see it ending this offseason.
Oh, yeah, Zach Kiefer, a man's man, adjunct professor. Anyway, let me move on. Matt Ryan. I got thoughts about Matt Ryan. We're going to do a conversation on players we'd like to see get a fresh start. Well, there's a spoiler alert. Up next. Oh, yes. The broadcast has returned. Great conversation on Carson Wentz with Zach Kiefer at The Athletic earlier this week. In fact, there was something, though, that caught my eye, Connie.
What?
Anything familiar about Mark's wardrobe?
All right. Well.
All right. So we did the Zach thing yesterday.
Oh, jeez.
And that's the left is. Hi, this is us now. That's the same shirt. Have you been sitting in this chair for 24 hours?
I'd like to say because such a professional sort of attitude, but it's we have a wonderful thing here where they do dry cleaning, and I submitted like 80% of my wardrobe to dry cleaning a week ago. Thought it would be there when I got this morning. It was a blank cubby, and so I came in this again for the second time in this shirt. So I had to
roll
produce it on air. Thank you. I think no one would. I think maybe half of 1% of the audience would have noticed that, but now it's ever present.
Mark, if I had that shirt, I would wear it all the time too. I think it's a great shirt.
Thank you. That's how you.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay. I'll back off. But do you want to give him a little sniff and just see how we're doing?
No. What? Okay. I think he's doing just fine.
That feels next level. So.
Do you want to?
I will after the show. A deep inhale.
You will not.
Back to football. Let's get into the conversation at hand. Now, there are players that are free agents. There are players that are under contract. We're going to go with the latter category. Players under contract that feels like it would be helpful to either the player or the player and the team for a fresh start and to move on, okay? And I'll get us going here. Matt Ryan. I think this would be a really good situation for everyone because I look at Ryan in a similar way to what we saw from Matt Stafford last offseason, like a star that's been around forever, that is on a team that's rebuilding, and it could be just a chance for him to go to a contender, and the team can recoup assets and start looking toward the future and get younger at the game's most important position. The problem, of course, is that there's almost a $50 million salary cap hit that connects to Ryan and the Falcons, which kind of hamstrings everybody here, Connie. And I think maybe the thought here is Matt Ryan's probably not being traded because of that. There maybe is a lesson to learn for the Falcons and everyone else to not put yourself in this type of position financially.
No, I was there for training camp last season, and there was so much optimism surrounding Matt Ryan. We talked to him on one of the shows here at the network, and just watching him year after year, it's like the same results. I would love for him to have a change of scenery, but I'm going to stick with the Falcons here because their owner, Arthur Blank, said obviously he would love to keep this player. I'm going to mention, but he thinks this player needs a change of scenery. It might be best for him, and that is Calvin Ridley. And I bring up Calvin Ridley because, yes, he had that 2020 breakout season, and then they ended up trading away Julio, and then Ridley was only able to play 5 games this past season. Now, he cited mental health issues, and so I think that would be the best for him, a change of scenery. And look, we could go to Philly.
Oh, okay. I see what you're doing here.
Give me a team that always needs a wide receiver. Give me a GM that loves a splashy trade or anything like that, any type of move. And they have 3 first-round picks. So it's perfect considering that Calvin Ridley also played with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith at Alabama.
It's pretty good. I'd like to know what's going on with Calvin Ridley. Obviously, he missed a lot of the season with mental health issues. Maybe he should have just drafted Justin Jefferson.
Can we not?
I mean, that would have worked.
That I could. How about you, Mark?
Why did you choose violence? I don't understand.
I'll stick with wide receiver. I'm going to go Jarvis Landry with the Browns. I think Jarvis Landry came in and changed. He did change Cleveland's culture, and I think he's done a lot for them. It's not an anti-Jarvis Landry thing. People, I think, who follow the Browns closely see that this move probably is going to be made. Definitely at this point, he's watched his friend disappear into the atmosphere and win a Super Bowl somewhere else. I think they want him to take a pay cut. I don't think he's interested in that. I mean, he's brought up some interesting tweets this week. It might be time for Cleveland just to rebuild that wide receiver room from scratch. They've got nothing. Someone like Drake London in the draft. Maybe you can go draft that guy. You can go figure it out, a way to get up. They need to give Baker Mayfield a better environment. I feel like Jarvis Landry is moving on into the sunset.
Well, the fact that he went totally radio silent after the Beckham trade. Sure. He's kind of a class act player, so he didn't want to get into the mess, but also a sign he's probably not happy there.
I think so.
And Beckham, the fact that it wasn't a trade, that he got cut, is like still unbelievable. I can't even believe it.
Wild. All right. Before we go, weekend vibes. Eric Weddle. Man, he was a vibe. All through the playoffs, we'll get into him.
That's a vibe right
and other
there.
things. That's a vibe. Up next on the broadcast. Oh, it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Weekend vibes. Get us going, Mark Sessler.
I would just mention that Nathaniel Hackett, the new coach of the Denver Broncos, told everyone what kind of man he is. I say this mainly to annoy you. Dan, let's hear.
I have always felt myself that I feel like I'm a Han Solo. I just felt like he was always smooth and cool, and he got the beautiful princess too, so sorry, I had to say that. But she's so mad at me right now. But no, I've always loved Han, and I mean, God, Yoda, that's almost like picking one of my children. I mean, Star Wars is dear to me, so, but no, we'll throw Han out there.
I mean, he certainly vibes like Han Solo to me, visually. I would say, Dan, you're someone that was one of the last Americans who's never seen the film, so I just did that to pique your annoyance.
Yeah, I would say if I was going to name like a Star Trek character, I would have said Captain Kirk.
That is
more
not
like a Captain
the wrong
Kirk
franchise.
from Star Wars.
It's not the right franchise.
Okay.
I don't know. Is it Star Trek?
No.
All right, Eric Weddle. Before we kind of move totally away from the season, I just wanted to touch on Weddle had an amazing journey from being out of the league for 2 years, playing pickup basketball, gets picked up by the Rams at the end of the regular season, and ends up not only winning a Super Bowl, fighting through an injury, including a torn pec, and he's calling the plays for the defense, and now is back into retirement. Just an awesome story for Weddle. Close it out, Connie.
All right, weekend vibes. I'm heading to Indianapolis for the Combine a little early, going on tomorrow, Sunday. So it's going to be an awesome time. Going to meet up with my dad down there, and you guys are coming as well. Might be the last time in Indy.
Maybe.
You know?
Maybe. I think it's been a great trip every year to Indy and hanging out with the old man, Ed Sessler.
Ed Sessler.
Wolf. Isn't your dad Ed too?
Yes, I don't know. Well,
Wait, your dad is Ed too? That's
he is also Ed.
This is this show. Next week, we'll see you.